Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 53 of your student journal. We're on page 53, and our objective of the day is, today I will multiply and divide a decimal number by powers of 10. Okay, so our goal is, today I will multiply and divide a decimal number by powers of 10. So quick reminder in our vocabulary is, what are these powers of 10? So remember, 10 equals, there's only one 10. 100 is the value of 10 times 10. And 1,000 is the value of 10 times 10 times 10. And we said we weren't going to use that part. And then we have this idea of exponents. So remember, an exponent has a base, which is the big number, and the exponent's the small number. So the base is what number do you have, and the exponent is how many you have. So for example, 10 exponent 3 means I have tens, and the 3 means I have 1, 2, 3 of them. Okay, I'm not going to show you the examples yet because I'm going to actually do them for you. But we are going to kind of look at our steps because we're going to keep them as is today. They're written really well. So first it says we're going to write the exponent number in standard form. So this is what we did in our last lesson, and I probably used the incorrect terminology saying we were going to decompose it. We really just are going to write it in standard form. Then we're going to identify the operation, multiplication or division, and move the direction the decimal point will move. So we have to think here, if we're going to multiply a number, is it going to get larger or smaller? We saw in our past lesson that it gets larger. If we're going to divide the number, it's going to get smaller. So we have to ask ourselves, which way should we move our decimal to make it larger or smaller? Then step 3 says we're going to determine the number of place value spaces the decimal point will move. And we're going to come back to this one in a moment. And then we're going to explain the pattern of zeros and decimals made to solve. Okay, so we're going to write some notes on this. A few lessons ago, we talked about this place value idea and how much each place value is worth. So we'd written this before, and we're going to write it again. One place value equals 10 times. And you might remember now writing this before. 2 place values equals 100 times. And you might start seeing the pattern. And we're going to write one more, and then maybe we'll just follow the pattern for any others. So 3 place values equals 1,000 times. Okay, so that's going to help us with step 3, and we're going to want to kind of refer back to those steps. When I'm doing my examples, ladies and gentlemen, it's a really good idea for you to look at your steps so you can see which one I'm on and how I'm doing them. Okay, I'm going to get started with my first problem. So again, you might want to follow along with your steps of how am I attacking this. So my directions say I'm going to multiply and divide by powers of 10. I'm not going to explain it by writing, we'll explain it by talking. So again, like I've told you, I like to usually rewrite mine because I think sometimes it's written too small. Okay, so I'm going to look at my steps. My first step says I'm going to write the exponent number in standard form. So instead of 10 exponent 4, what does that mean? Well, it means 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, but it actually is worth, remember our cheat ways, there's 4 zeros, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's actually worth 10,000. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a little weird. Okay, so step 3 is going to be our big step. I'm sorry, step 2, I apologize. Step 2 says identify the operation, multiplication or division, and the direction the decimal point will move. Okay, if I'm going to multiply this number by 10,000, don't I want it to get bigger? Doesn't this number have to get larger if it's going to be multiplied by such a large number? So I know that it's going to have to get larger. Okay, so we have to really think about, and this is going to go into the next step as well. Which way should I move it if I want it to get larger? So right now this is worth, if we thought of money, it's worth $1.28. If I move my decimal this way, and let's just say I moved it one spot, okay, and I had put it over here, I just moved it one over. Didn't it get smaller? When I moved it to the left, didn't it make my number get smaller? Because now there's no holes. What if I moved it one this way? Didn't it, see how it got bigger? By moving it this way, my number's getting larger. And that's what I want. I want my number to get larger. We haven't talked about how large yet. Step 2 is just which way should I move it? Well, because it's multiplication, I need my number to get larger. So I'm going to move my decimal that way because I want it to get larger. Okay, now the next step is how many should I move it? So let's look at step 3. Step 3 says, determine the number of place value spaces the decimal point will move. Okay, well let's look here. 1 place value is 10. 2 place value is 100. 3 place value is 1,000. But I have 10,000. So what do you think would it be? Well, it's not these. What's going to come after? If we went from 10 to 100 to 1,000, wouldn't my next one be 10,000? So it needs to move 4 place values. So I need to move it 4 place values, and I'm going to move it this direction. Okay, so let's rewrite our number. Okay, and I need to move it. That's 1 place value if I put it there. If I put it here, that would be 2 place values. If I put it here, that would be 3 place values. If I put it here, that means I moved it 4 times. So I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, in these empty spots, I need to fill them in with zeros. So my number is 12800 decimal, which I don't need the decimal in the end. So my answer is just 12800, which is 12,800. Now let's think about why that makes sense. If I only had 1 holes and I multiplied it by 10,000, 1 times 10,000 is 10,000. So I know my number is going to be about that, but then I had some more. So my number does make sense. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, here's my next one, and it says 64 5/10 divided by 10 exponent 5. So my first step is says to write the exponent in standard form. Ready? So I have 64 5/10 divided by, and my cheat is there's going to be 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's think about this. Now, my next step says identify the operation, multiplication and division, and direction the decimal point's going to move. If you're going to take a number and divide it by 100,000, doesn't it need to get a lot smaller? So which way should I move this to make my number smaller? I have 64 holes right now. If I move it here, I'm going to have 645 holes, so it's getting bigger. If I move it this way, I only have 6 holes. So I want to move my decimal that way. That's going to make it get smaller. So I'm going to move my decimal that way to get smaller. Okay, let's look at our next step. Determine the number of place value spaces the decimal will move. Well, let's look at our step notes here. Wow, my number is 100,000. I only went to 1,000. But let's see if we see a pattern here. 1 place value had 1 0. 2 place values was 2 zeros. 3 place values was 3 zeros. Oh, on my last one, I moved it 4 places, and this was 4. So you're seeing a pattern? So I think this means 100,000, or the exponent 5 means I'm going to move it 5 place values. Okay, so we're going to take our number, which is 64 5/10, and we're going to move it 5 place values to the left to make it smaller. Ready? Notice where I'm putting my loops under the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where my decimal is now going to go. So I'm going to fill in all these empty spots with zeros. So I have decimal 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 5. Sorry, it wasn't 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3 zeros. Now I can't get rid of that decimal like I did last time because then it looks like a whole number. So I have to leave that just like that. Okay, let's try some together, ladies and gentlemen. We are on page 54. And here's our first problem. It says 0 and 874 thousandths times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, so first step is we're going to get rid of this. So it's 0 and 874 thousandths times, and 10 exponent 4 is 10 times 10 times 10 times, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or it's 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Okay, so let's think about step 2 is look at the sign and decide, should my number get larger or smaller? So if I multiply something times 10,000, it should get bigger. So which way should I move this to make it bigger, to make this number get larger in value? Well, if I keep moving it this way, I'm going to get no whole numbers. If I move it over here, I'm going to start to get whole numbers. So I should move the decimal that direction. That's going to make it larger. Okay, my next step says determine how many places I should move it. So how many places should we move it? Well, we can do a few things. We can realize that 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, or exponent 4, but pretty much we're going to move it 4 place values. Okay, so let's write our number, and let's get ready to move it 4 place values. So remember that my loops go under the number. So ready? 1 place value to this direction, 2 place values, 3 place values, and 4 place values. That's where I want to move it. So we can fill in our empty spot with a 0. So we have 0, 8, 7, 4, 0 decimal. Okay, if this is a whole number, I don't really need the decimal at the end, and I probably wouldn't have this in the front. So this is the same as 8,740. That would be my answer, and that would be the correct way to write it. Okay, let's try one more together. This is 2 and 1600ths divided by 10 exponent 3. Okay, so step 1 is they want us to get rid of the exponent. So we have 2 and 1600ths divided by, so exponent 3 means we're going to have 1, 2, 3 zeros, 1,000, because it's 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, now we have to decide, next step is, which direction are we going to be moving this? Well, if I want it, I'm dividing something by 1,000, so it's going to get really small. You divide it by 1,000, so which direction should I move it to make it get smaller? Well, if I move it here, went from 2 holes to no holes. If I move it here, I went from 2 holes to 21 holes. So I should move it that direction because that's going to make it smaller and get rid of my whole numbers. Okay, my next step is, how many place values should we move it? Well, a few things could help us. We can say there's 3 zeros. We can say there is an exponent 3, or we could have even looked at our little cheat sheet here. 3 place values is 1,000 times. So pretty much we're going to be moving it 3 times. Okay, so let's get ready. Let's write it. And remember, our loops go under. So 1 time, this direction, 2 times, 3 times. That's where it needs to go. So we have decimal 00216. Now, I can't get rid of the decimal because then it looks like a whole number. And I can't get rid of those either. Those are placeholders. So this one needs to stay as is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, your teacher's going to assign you some more problems, and have a great day. Bye-bye.